guys, this is Brittany from Imagine This, a music and art studio for both children and adults, and today we are going over Art 2's lesson. Now Art 2, we will be showing you how to do faceless watercolor portraits, and what you will need for this activity is a cup of water, some paintbrushes. I will honestly be using probably just this round pointed one for the majority of the time, but having an assortment of them is really helpful. A towel or paper towel, a pencil, an eraser, some watercolor paper or cardstock. Just be aware that if it's cardstock, it's more likely to bend, so it might be a good idea to tape down the corners to your table to help with warping. And then of course we will need a tray of watercolors, which we can provide for you if needed. But that's everything, so let's get started. So I know we've gone a lot over faces and everything in the past little while, so I'm not going to delve too much into that, but we're just going to do a quick review while doing faceless watercolor portraits. Now what's great about these is you don't necessarily have to focus on face proportions so much because there's no face. There's literally just a head. But you still need to keep in mind, if you need help, that the top of the head to start off with a circle, just because that's the easiest base to start off with. And then if you look at yourself in the mirror, or if you're doing this for someone else, these are actually really popular and fun gifts to give to friends and family. You can see if you have a more pointed chin, if you want to make it more cartoon-like, you can make it really drastic. But if you want it really realistic, I tend to just go down from the sides of the circle. Depending on the shape of the face, I'll either curve it in more, make a few areas a little softer or sharper. But that's a good sort of generic face to start off with. And you always, especially when doing watercolors, make sure to try and erase these lines that you do not want, because once you lay that watercolor down, it's going to stay there. There is no going back after that point. Now there are several different options when it comes to watercolor portraits. I'm going to do a half body portrait, but you're free to do a full body, or maybe even just a head and shoulders, whatever you would like to do. But for a neck, what I like to do is typically you want to try and match it up as closely to the chin area as possible, but if you want to make it more dramatic, you can make it skinnier. I might just make mine a little skinnier just because that's the style that I kind of like to do. And then again, we're just going to build shapes. We've talked about this before, so let's just apply that knowledge here. So I'm just going to use sort of a rectangle for the body. This should all be reviewed from what we've done a little while ago. If you want to go back and check out those videos, we still have those up as well. Basically what you're going to do is just build up the body using shapes. I like to use circles for the shoulders. Maybe we're going to give this person a little bit of a sassy pose. Maybe I'll have their arms meet up with their hips. Right, and again, this is a really loose sketch, and with watercolors, I'll have to go back and erase all the lines I do not want. I made the head a little big, but that's okay because I can just go back and fix that really quickly. Right, and just down to the legs, and I'm just doing a real quick portrait, but I want you to really take your time. Now with watercolor portraits, you decide where you want the detail to be. The reason we don't add it to the face is that it can kind of be really jarring. So if I added like just one feature onto the face and left the rest blank, that would make it very much a focal point and kind of make it sort of weird or disturbing. So not a lot of detail in the face, we just leave a blank slate for the face, but you can add detail any place else that you would like if there's any wrinkles in your clothes, or maybe the curls of your hair. You're free to add as much detail anywhere else that you want, or try and leave the face alone. Unless you have some sort of facial accessory that you consider important, like I like to draw glasses on people, which seems kind of funny whenever I don't draw eyes on a faceless portrait, but it adds a lot of character and it looks really cute in the end. So now that I have this cute little sort of superhero pose, I'm just going to give him some clothes real quick. Maybe do some easy hands, nothing too complicated. All right, we're still following some of those principles. Now remember, the hair does not start on the top of the circle of the head. It is part of this circle right here. So I'm just going to go in right here and add the hair, still leaving the face blank, not adding anything to it. Then of course I need ears as well. Alright, and doing a faceless watercolor portrait, try and give yourself a challenge of giving them a background too. Maybe pick your favorite place that you like to go. So let's say that your favorite place to go is in your backyard. You could add some details like a swing set in the background. Or maybe your favorite place is your room. You could draw your bed in the background and have just a ton of tiny details showing exactly where you are. Or if you want to keep it really simple, you can always just add flowers or a nice border around yourself. But give yourself a little challenge and add some details to the background just to help heighten your character or portrait. Alright, so now that I have a really loose and nice sketch to go off of, I'm just going to lightly go over this. And if you're going to use Sharpie to go over the lines, I suggest waiting until you're done with the watercolor, simply because adding Sharpie or ink pen before you add watercolor, there's a high risk of the pen bleeding in with the water and just spreading. We really don't want that to happen. So we've gone over a few watercolor techniques before, and the same applies when doing watercolor portraits. So I'm actually going to start with a wet on wet, applying water to the page over the face. The more water you have, the lighter the color will be. So if I want a skin tone, I might go with sort of this peachy color right here, or maybe even go for an orange and lighten it enough to where it is a light skin tone. Or if I have a darker skin tone, I can go in with a brown. It all really depends on who you are trying to create. That is really light, so I'm just going to go back in there real quick. Right. And one thing that I like to do is actually make the neck, at least right underneath the head, just a little darker, just to show that there's overlapping and that there's shading a little bit, which is a really nice, just slight detail you can add that really elevates your faceless watercolor portrait. Right, and then the rest is really up to you. You don't have to use the wet on wet technique. It's a nice and quick technique that gets you some pretty good light colors. But if you want a lot darker colors, you're free to go on with dry on wet or just dry brush in some areas, because dry brush gets some really bright, vibrant coloring. But overall, that is all I have to say about it. We'd love to see your images, and have a good day.